All right, I'm gonna hit admit all. Okay.
Alrighty, alrighty.
Cool.
We're starting to get some people in. So hey, we'll give it a
Welcome.
couple, we'll give it a couple moments before we get started, I think. All right. Doug, you want to do the usual spiel, or should I?
Well, since I'm not sure I know what the usual is, maybe you should.
All right. Well, hey, welcome to the third of our AHA happy hours. I imagine we're going to start getting some more people in here in a moment. Um, just wanted to take a moment and thank everybody for joining us. And of course, this is a brand new AHA benefit that was mostly thought up of by, wait, no, he's over here on me. There, Doug. Doug's brilliant idea to have a kind of a little more informal gathering of both members and non-members. So don't forget that these things are available to everybody who is a concerned home brewer. So make sure you invite people to come in, people in your clubs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, my only real instructions for this little thing is please make sure you practice good Zoom hygiene. So stay on mute unless you are talking. And most importantly, follow Wheaton's law. Don't be a dick. This is a public gathering of folks, so don't be a jerk. And take questions and comments down in the chat if you got questions. Emily, we have the question. Yeah, we have Q&A set up. So if you go and you look down in the toolbar of the Zoom app, you will see you will see a little box with a question mark under in it that says Q&A, or if you haven't used it yet, you may have to hit the funny little more button, and it will be located under there. Just look for Q&A and go and ask a question, and we'll get through all that. And in the meanwhile, like I said, we'll give it a moment. But in the meanwhile, where are you all at? What are you drinking? What are you brewing? Tell us some stories.
You can unmute. Matter of fact, we want you to unmute until we start the video, if you're willing.
Well, I'm having a little Buffalo Trace.
Ooh, nice.
Start easy.
Yeah.
Well, if
Uh,
nobody's going to chime in, I'm going to talk about a technical detail slightly. We are going to show Matt's video. And Drew will introduce it because this was his find. And we decided, boy, it'd be great to get Matt in here. And we have Matt here, but Matt has some serious weather challenges and no power. So Matt is here by phone and he's listening and may jump in periodically. Matt, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Do you want to introduce yourself right quick?
Yeah. My name is Matt Giovanisci. I've been homebrewing since 2005, and my channel, this is, most people in the homebrewing community would know me from Brew Cabin or brewcabin.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So the technical detail I was going to talk about it. I'm going to play back the video. Hopefully we'll have good frame rates and upload speeds. You'll just have to tell me and also put in the chat whether the volume's about the right level or not, and I can boost it a little bit. While we're playing the video, I would ask you for everybody to make sure you mute so somebody won't blurt out something while somebody has it turned up. The video, I think, Matt, I did not actually look at the time. Isn't it about 10 minutes?
It's exactly 9 minutes.
9 minutes. All right. I was off by a minute. So when we start that, again, I just make sure everybody's on mute. And after 9 minutes, kind of work on your questions because Matt's going to help us with those questions. And what we're especially interested in is are there any things that sort of strike you or kind of go to the heart or speak to you? Now, speaking of that, Drew, I would really like you to pick up the mantle from here because you found this wonderful video and it started quite a lot of discussion. So, Drew, take it away on how you found that.
Yeah, so we all know that you can spend you can spend a lot of time on the internet doom scrolling, finding weird niches to fall down, and then of course, it gets even worse with social media, right? Because social media is sitting there designed to get things into your eyeballs. And so one day I was like one evening actually I was roaming around on I think Facebook, and somebody had posted a link to Matt's video, and uh, Matt's video literally jumped out at me because it felt like the exact same thing that we had been talking about um, as an organization, about homebrewing, getting people excited about homebrewing, keeping people excited about homebrewing, and sort of avoiding burnout and bringing people back into the fold. Um, and so I went and we have a private forum for committee members and for the community and education committee, which is the subcommittee that puts this stuff on. That I'm the chair of, and Doug's the co-chair of. Um, we we had this space, and I put it out in the private discussion for everybody. And it is currently in the 3 months that the committee has been communicating around on this platform. It is the thread that has had the most responses from everybody. Everybody jumped in to talk about what this video was saying, what this video meant to them, and what lessons they thought we could take away from it. And so that's exactly why we decided to bring Matt in here, because this is really all about trying to remind ourselves about what is the joy of homebrewing, why do we homebrew, and how the hell do we get back to it if we're not doing it as much as we'd like to. So there you go. There's my intro.
All right. And again, Matt is with us, unfortunately, with no video. But we're going to jump right into the video. I would ask you, everybody, to mute. It's about 9 minutes long, and you might want to put your questions in the question area, or if you got some chat, feel free to do that. And then when we get done, we'll start with the questions, and hopefully Matt will be able to field a few of them. So first of all, before I get going, Matt, you okay? And are we ready to start?
Yes, I'm safe and I'm okay.
All right. All right. We're going to start with the video.
I love homebrewing. But my homebrewing process has gotten more complicated. The equipment got more expensive, and I reached a point where the hobby was no longer fun. So I'm dusting off my old equipment and heading out into the middle of nowhere to reconnect with the hobby I love. I remember the first time I actually had homebrew. I had homebrew because my friend, he got a Mr. Beer kit for Christmas. And I remember brewing that beer, and I remember putting it in swing top bottles, blue swing top bottles. When I came back, after it was all done carbonating, we drank the beer for the first time. And believe it or not, it was terrible. But from that moment forward, I was hooked. What we're brewing today is an American Amber Ale, which is the first brew that I ever brewed on the Mr. Beer Kit. Okay, I might be lying. I think the first beer that I made on the Mr. Beer Kit was a pale ale, but definitely the second brew that I ever made was an American Amber Ale. And that was made on actual home brewing equipment that I bought from a local homebrew shop. And I believe that the American Amber Ale is the perfect beer to start homebrewing with because it's malty, it's a little bit hoppy, it's really hard to f up, and you can drink a lot of it because it's only 5%. So personally, that's why we're doing it. We're making an Amber Ale as an homage to the second beer that I've ever made. It's kind of a sloppy Vorloft, but I'm gonna try to be as gentle as I can to not disturb the grain bed. So for the recipe, I did about 8 pounds of Maris Otter as my base grain, a pound of Crystal 60, and the secret ingredient, about 3 ounces, so a little kiss of pale chocolate malt. Every time I've made an amber ale and I add that little bit of chocolate malt, even just the tad amount, I feel like it always comes out so much better. I can tell that we have conversion. The reason I can tell is because the bubbles in the mash have like a slickness to it and like a little rainbow color. And that tells me there's sugar. But since I don't have a refractometer, we just have to trust our guts. We don't even have internet out here. There's no signal. I'm thinking we have successfully Vorloft. All right, so what does that mean? Well, it means that we're gonna start transferring to this kettle. I gotta keep an eye on it because towards the end, it's gonna wanna come out. All the grain's gonna wanna come out. We're gonna do a batch sparge. And you know what? I started doing batch sparges with all grain, and I like it. I haven't done this style of brewing in probably 6 years. You know, everything I do now is advanced. It's electric. It's in a conditioned garage. You know, every variable fully controlled, water chemistry, the whole thing. And it's been so long since I've just come out here and been like, whatever, let's make a beer, let's go, you know. But I'm like, I've never done it outside of my home. Never gone out in the middle of friggin' Colorado. I've never done this. So I didn't know what was gonna happen. And let me tell you something. You should do this. It's incredible. I love this hobby. I do. I do. It's not a bit. It's true. Fuck, you got me. You got me. All right. As I finish up this brew day, I was left with a renewed feeling of enthusiasm. One that I haven't felt in a long time. And that feeling followed me home, where I pitched the yeast, and watched it patiently as they turned the wort into beer. This was just the thing that I needed to remember how fun homebrewing can be. But it's not over. There's still one more thing to make this adventure complete. This is the best part. We got a fire going. We got a cool autumn night. I got some homebrew here. So cheers. You know what? That ain't terrible. Cheers.
All right. I hope everybody could hear and got good video of that. Now, Matt, it must have been a little weird listening to your video, but are you ready to get some questions?
I am. It's not weird. I've heard it a billion times.
All right. I'd say we take the questions one at a time. Anybody have a burning question? And if you do, unmute.
While people are getting questions into the Q&A, I'll just ask Matt real quick. One, what's the last thing you brewed? Now we saw this one. It feels like what you did this in the fall.
I did this at the end of October, yes.
Okay. So was this the last batch of beer you made?
No, I am currently brewing a Mexican lager, and I'm going to be using finger limes to add the lime flavor to it, which will be a fun experiment. And I have two other beers in like ready to go. Two other recipes developed and ready to start brewing probably next week.
Nice. So I have to ask then, so we saw you obviously take the old equipment out and go out into the woods and, have a beautiful view while brewing. These other beers that you're doing, did you go back to fancy or are you staying simple or did you change your process at all?
I'm going to change my process, but yes, the Mexican lager, I went back to fancy. I did an all-in-one system into a unitank. And the next one I'm doing, I believe that one will be on the fancy system as well. But then I'm doing a cask ale, an ordinary bitter that I might pull out the old equipment for.
Yeah, I saw in the shot of your garage there a couple of hand pumps. I was like, ooh, those are pretty.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have a little pin system for cask beer. I've only done maybe 3 or 4 of them, and it's something I would love to just keep going and doing at least twice a year. That'd be great.
I don't know. All right, Douglas.
All right. It looks like we've got one question.
Yep.
Sorry, got to kind of look around. All right. All right, Steve, you want to ask your question?
Sure. Why doesn't Matt look like I imagined he would?
Oh, what would you imagine I look like? I'm curious.
Well, I've heard you many times on Basic Brewing Radio, and I thought you were maybe a little shorter, skinnier, had brown blonde hair, and kind of a scraggly short beard.
I would say scraggly short beard is correct. I'm 6'2", not skinny. I'll say not skinny. I won't go too far. And then yeah, well I guess that's interesting. I guess I sound differently than I look. I should get a bigger, like a deeper voice.
All right, yeah, you just need to walk around and have your voice constantly through some filter.
Yeah,
Anyway,
just
I
thought ideas.
get a good laugh listening to you on Basic Brewing.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Um, so I'll just ask everybody real quick, like how many of you all have seen your brewing sort of slow down in the last couple of years, like where you find yourself in kind of match situation where you're like, wait, am I even still a home brewer? Right? And I know that for Steve, you're raising your hand. I mean, I know for me, I went through what I kind of refer to as a fallow period where I kind of did what Matt did, except for I did the version of it at the time I was around or that I was going through, which was I built myself a nice big fancy 3 vessel system that I could roll out on a stand and this, that, and the other. And it killed my brewing to the point where I think I brewed once in that year after I built that system. I felt like I was finally like, oh, look, I'm a big boy. I'm a real brewer now. And for whatever reason, it just went thump and thudded over. Um, so has anybody else also experienced that or is experiencing that? Are you in the throes?
Well, I took like a 4-year hiatus because I had really pretty severe back issues and I just could not lift kettles and haul them around. So I did a lot of mead and cider during that time. But now I have an anvil system, which it makes it a lot easier for me. So I'm not brewing as much as I should, but I'm brewing a lot more than I was. And in Florida, where I am, summers are, you just don't feel like brewing. My garage is not climate controlled. You know, I have limited cool space. So that's my excuse for summer. I should be brewing a shit ton of stuff right now. It's great weather here, but it's holidays.
And look, I grew up in Apopka, Florida. I didn't want to do anything during summer except for the occasional football practice when I was stupid enough to be on a football team. Everything else was running from air conditioned facility to air conditioned facility. So totally understand that. Um, Anybody else?
I moved to an area where I'm not surrounded by neighbors who want to drink a lot of beer. So I think I'm making the same amount of beer. I'm not just getting rid of it at the rate I used to. And I don't know why they don't want beer. Free beer.
Are they non-drinkers or they just want something other than beer?
Yeah, I just think they're drinking less.
Okay.
I can't get, like, my kids live near here. I can't get them to drink the beer. They're millennials. They don't want to drink beer now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is interesting to see, but I've noticed. So Ed, you'd said, hey, you stopped brewing for a while or brewing beer for a while, but you were making mead and cider. I've been noticing a lot of the younger members of my club are much more mead and cider focused than they are beer focused, which is interesting to me. And I think it plays into some of the theme of like what Matt was talking about. Yeah, with the beer stuff, it's very easy for us to complicate the shit out of it, right? Like we can get like very, up our own noses about, all of our gear and perfect temperatures and perfect timing on this, that, and the other. And oh my God, don't get any oxygen in with your dry hops. Make sure you got a fancy gadget to drop your hops in. Um, Mead and cider doesn't seem to suffer that same problem.
Well, you can make it as complicated as you want, but I mean, yeah, mead and cider is just basically easier. We did learn to homebrew day. I did a cider. It was in a public, like a farmer's market, and people were just kind of amazed that, with grocery store apple juice, which is all we can get in Florida, water and some yeast, you can make a decent cider. Like that's all you got to do. Like, yeah.
To this day, of all the books I've written, the one that has sold the most and still continues to sell the most is the book I made about how to make simple cider. Who knows? Um, Bring it back to oh wait, did we get another question in there? Oh no, that's just that one. All right. So bring it back to Matt. Matt, can you describe the genesis for this video? Like why did you decide that, hey, okay, one, I got to get back to brewing, which I think we can all empathize with. But why was the idea then morphing into, I've got to be simple, so therefore that means I have to go into the woods?
Okay, sure. I think the idea of going into the woods was a different idea that I had that I just wanted to do. If anybody's familiar with, there's a YouTube channel called Primitive Technology, where it's just a gentleman who goes out into, I believe, the bush of New Zealand, and he makes bushcraft. He does, it's all ambient. It's just like a single camera, and he'll build like shelters and really just complex stuff, but with, clay that he makes. And I love those videos from I'll never do any bushcraft myself, but for a meditative, just easy, calm watch, it's really nice to sit down and watch those. And I thought that would be interesting because homebrewing has a very similar calming effect, depending on how you do it. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe there's an idea there of like homebrewing, like meditative homebrewing. And then there's another show that I really like called Joe Pera Talks With You, which is a lot of the inspiration for the way that this video was filmed, and the soundtrack and the color grading and all that came from this show that I absolutely love. And I thought, oh, maybe there's something with, like, I don't know, the coziness and the comfort and the meditative properties of making a beer and getting back to the roots of making a beer. And so those ideas mixed with the fact that I hadn't been homebrewing, the fact that I needed to reconnect with this hobby, which had gotten away from me. And I think a lot of that had to do with, there was a few things. One, the rise and subsequent fall of New England IPAs. I don't even know if I would go as far as to say fall, but at least in my world, all the equipment that I bought was all in pursuit of making the style of beer as best as I could at home, only to realize that, like, oh my God, I just made it so incredibly complicated. And I still I got really close to commercial grade New England style IPAs, but it just cost the amount of time and money and patience and equipment just got out of hand. And so that, and then at the same exact time, a lot of people were, they stopped making homebrew content. A lot of my favorite podcasters either stopped or reduced the amount of output. A lot of the YouTubers who started up during the pandemic, haven't been making content. And a lot of my inspiration for brewing came from this sort of stream of media that I was consuming, and a lot of the magazines had stopped, and so I just felt I didn't have the inspiration anymore, and I wanted to contribute back to that. I wanted to be a part of that media funnel, which is what I mentioned earlier. And I thought, okay, this blend of ideas kind of all came together for me at just the right time, where it was like a great time of year to go and do this crazy thing, which it doesn't sound that crazy what I did, but for me, just getting up the nerve to go into the middle of nowhere with equipment that I haven't used in probably 7 years and brew a beer that I haven't made all year and film it, it just was really nerve-wracking. And I thought, all of these ideas combined, and me coming back to, like, I haven't produced a video in 4 years around homebrewing. So yeah, that's kind of like, to make a short story long, that's kind of how it came together.
So you decided to just basically, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do something crazy with it?
I kind of had to. I felt like I had to, because I needed to know what it felt like the first time I brewed a beer, and what made me like that. I talk about in the video the Mr. Beer kit, in the moment where I drank that beer, and it was really, honestly, like, it was undrinkable. But, like, there's a whole story that I ended up cutting out of the video where I talk about my first time going to a homebrew store and the feeling of making the first beer and drinking that beer was like, okay, this is just the most, like like I knew that that point I was doing it forever. And I wanted to figure out how to actually get that back, because a lot of the brewing I was doing was I mostly would do it alone because I had so many steps. I had so many gadgets. Like I mentioned refractometers, but it's gotten way crazier than that in my setup. And I didn't want anybody over. I didn't want anybody to be over the house because I would make one mistake and it would ruin the brew day for me. And I was just like, I want to know what it feels like to not rely on any gadgets, including a cell phone or Wi-Fi or internet, and to not measure anything, to use fire again. It's been so long since I've used, gas or fire to make beer. And I thought too, just like I live in this state, I've really never taken advantage of like going out and, going at high altitudes and just having the scenery at the same time. So I just thought doing all of that at once would bring me back this joy. And I swear to God, it worked. Like that moment in that video, which I hesitated to leave in, that happened. And that was like, oh, I'm back. Like I'm going to brew from here on out. And I was safe to go into the fancy equipment again, as long as I balance it, as long as I, connect with people, invite people over, not worry so much about nailing it and hitting all my numbers, making sure I go to other people's houses with their equipment and just kind of just hanging out, getting together with people and making something and not really being overly concerned on how perfect it turns out, but, not also phoning it in either, at the same time.
So yeah, finding a balance.
Balance. That's the key. Moderation.
Moderation in all things, including moderation. Sometimes that involves loading up the beer gear in the back of a Tacoma and going.
That's right.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to think, like, because I know, at least for me, when I've hit those sort of rough patches, yeah, it takes a good creative idea, I think, to pull it out. So you did that with let's go back to the simple gear. I know my original brew kettle is sitting, about 6 feet to my left over here with the thing I bought to do my first mashes in, and it has copper pipes in it. I haven't thought about pulling that thing out in a while, but I do brew in a bag every once in a while to do something very simple, on like a little induction burner.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I think it takes sometimes when you find yourself in one of those fallow periods, it really does take like, let me do something stupid, or let me do something creative and use that to sort of reinvigorate everything. And it sounds like you did that with your not camping trip. Or maybe you have a deadline. Like so much of my brew year revolves around the Southern California Homebrewers Festival and making sure that I have something good for the Southern California Homebrewers Festival. It's important to find like whatever inspirations the world gives you to go and make beer. So now that you've got the camping trip out of the way, and I know not a camping trip still, but now that you got your adventures in the woods out of the way, what do you feel like is going to keep motivating you to brew?
The creative factor in every brew is what I think is driving it. So one of the things for me was I got so hung up on trying to make beer taste better than the commercial stuff I was drinking. And when it doesn't taste better, and when you're constantly comparing yourself to the pros, I felt as though like, well, well, then what's the point? Like, I might as well just go grab beer from them. And I just didn't and then all my friends would start, because I was always critiquing it against the pro stuff, that a lot of my friends would also critique it against the pro stuff. And I ended up just kind of hating every beer that I made. I was never happy with it because it was never quite there. So going forward, I thought, okay, what's the real reason that people homebrew? And I hear that story that, like, back in the day it used to be, well, I couldn't get this beer and so I ended up making it. Or, there really wasn't. When I grew up in South New Jersey, like outside of Philadelphia. There were no breweries until 2015. So yeah, to get like decent beer, that's what we did. But we still got Dogfish Head. We still got good beer. So that to me was never an excuse. But for me, I think it was with homebrewing at the scale that it is. And I think you can just make the craziest shit. You can just make something that it could turn out to be kind of terrible, but at least you tried something that you did something creative that a brewery would never ever think to do, because there'd be so much money, and it would just be a bad idea business wise. So that's what I'm doing going forward, is I'm playing around with ingredients that are unattainable at scale, just from a pure financial perspective, and making beers that don't sell. Because, like, for example, like, I love a black IPA, a Cascadian Dark Ale. They're so hard to find, but I will always have one on tap. And not only that, but can I buy like really good coffee, and make like a really good coffee stout that would otherwise be unavailable at the pro level, or experiment with a weird fruit that would be hard to get in quantity, but I have a small amount of it, so let's make something crazy, So that's kind of where I'm headed. I'm kind of balancing between, make a simple style every once in a while, just to have something super, super drinkable on tap, but then, get crazy, do something super weird. Because guess what? If it turns out awesome, then you're going to be pumped. And if it turns out kind of crappy, you did something creative, and there's nothing wrong with that.
But
What?
sorry, Doug, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, Matt. You brewed a bunch of beer out there in the woods, and we've all got systems that brew at least 5 gallons, maybe more. Have you played around with any small batch brewing? Because to me, if we want to brew more often, brewing small batches is it. One of the best toys I had was a little Pico brew, because it was just lights out brewing. I could walk away. It was wonderful. And it only brewed, I think, 1.75 gallons or something like that. It was ideal. So are you fooling around with any small batches, and what's your thoughts there?
Truthfully, no. I have done it in the past, but I think I'm a big process guy. I really like if I'm going to do something, I want to go kind of hard. So it's similar to, like, I do, Doug, you and I talked about sourdough. It's every time I make a sourdough day, I'm doing 2 to 3 loaves, because to make just one, I'm like, it's an all day event. So, and I want it to be an all day event. I want to commit time to this, because that's part of the fun. So personally, I just stick with, I experimented going into 10 gallons. But that was too much. So 5 gallons is a perfect amount for me. Get me 1 keg. Yeah, it does take me a while to go through it, but I'm trying to come up with clever ways to get rid of the beer. So I know someone mentioned earlier that they had a hard time getting rid of beer. I also have that problem, but that's another way that's another thing I'm trying to solve creatively. I haven't figured it out completely, but I'm looking forward to figuring out different ways.
Never forget that there's nothing wrong with the sink. I know.
That's right.
It feels like a complete anathema to how we're supposed to think, particularly when everybody's like, homebrewers are cheap asses who just want to brew beer so they can get drunk for cheap. Yeah, the sink's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, the sink is okay. I agree. And if I got creative and I did something that just like did not turn out, I'm not going to subject myself or anybody else to that beer.
Hey, don't forget the sewers get thirsty too, man. All those gators,
That's right.
all those gators get
Yeah,
thirsty.
It the Clown needs something to drink down there.
Um, so Matt, I just did want to touch back on one thing that you said. Okay, so one, it looks like the way I would think of it is you sound very much like, hey, a bit of a process nerd, right? When between the brewing and the sourdough, that's you love that fiddly bit as almost like an act of meditation.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's a lot of what I'm hearing from you, and that's one of those
Oh,
things.
yeah, you should see my coffee ritual. It's insane.
Of course, there's a coffee ritual.
Yeah.
And I know we have I think Adam's over here in the video feed smoking a cigar, and that requires its own ritual. I occasionally break out a pipe that has its own ritual. Yeah,
Mhm.
funny little ritual things. Um, and I mean, it goes back to what I like to tell people a lot about is the joke I always give people is that homebrewing is 2 hours worth of work crammed into 8 hours.
Right.
There's a lot of time to sort of putter and meditate and just kind of be in your own head doing something else, and it's very 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 good for the soul. um so I love the fact that you focused on that. I love the fact that you even took in the video that time to kind of pause and just have that moment going, shit, I like this.
Mhm.
Because that is very much, I think, a heart and soul of homebrewing, and it sounds like in some ways that just like even with meditative practice, like even like the supposedly healthy ones of like, sitting yogi style and focusing on nothingness, emptying the mind. Sorry, I live in California. What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want from me?
Right.
You can take that too far and do damage to yourself. It sounds like in some ways that like you're finding that balance of like pulling back from like I'm too focused on like, oh my God, all this has to be absolutely perfectly right, instead of focusing on the meditative aspect of the
Drew, I
process.
want to ask Matt a
Yeah.
question, but I want to see if anybody else has a question. Feel free to unmute if you have a question for Matt.
Or for anybody
Yeah.
else.
So, yeah, in
Yeah.
terms of the meditation thing, there is a balance because I think I tried very hard now not to overdo it when it comes to process and being meticulous about every little tiny detail. But to counter that, I'm also not winging it and kind of just, trying to make it as fast as possible and cutting corners and, you know, and I'm not thinking about it as, oh, I have to get this beer done. Let me just knock it out. There's a balance of, I want to spend time with this. I want to I want to enjoy this time I have brewing a beer. I want to do it not just in my temperature controlled garage, but perhaps like I always go back to this video of there was a brewing TV video with Michael Dawson where he talks about in Minnesota he just goes out when it's like super cold, like 10 below, 20 below, and he makes it a point to brew outside at night when it's cold. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to brew in a blizzard. I want to but not again, not just trying to knock it out, but try to connect more with the process and the hobby itself, and also try to involve more people because I spent a lot of time doing this hobby completely alone, and that's kind of not. I mean, there's some value to that, but I think for me, I'm trying to open it up and letting other people help, and again, it helps to not be super meticulous when people are around, talking to you and distracting you. So I think it's healthy too to find that balance.
So Matt, you mentioned the inspiration for this video was to sort of address all the negative things you've been hearing about beer and brewing and the hobby was dying and all those kinds of things. So you've made this video. I think it's done pretty well. It's probably got way more success coming. But what is your follow on to it Normally, when we start something like this, there's a path forward, and I bet you've been thinking about that. Can you describe what this has inspired you to do next?
Yeah. So I made it very clear. Or it's very intentional that I did not want to call out the industry and this rhetoric around homebrewing is dying, which is a lot of people are calling out. And I think, I get it, and I definitely feel it. This was just my personal story, and it was sort of my way of telling or saying it without saying it. And so I just wanted to point out that that was intentional, and like the feeling that that maybe you had when you saw this, and the sentiment that came from it. I was absolutely aware of the homebrewing is dying rhetoric, and it bummed me out. And that was sort of like, okay, this is my answer to that without directly calling anybody out for saying it, or even the rhetoric itself. So going forward, I do have videos already in production, and the next one, well, I'm working on this. It's going to be a short form video, but I am doing a Mexican lager using finger limes. If you don't know what they are, you can look it up. It's kind of cool. And then I'm doing a coffee stout with, if you've ever heard, I don't know if I can pronounce the name correctly, but it's the cat poop coffee, the stuff that I believe
It could be
the
Luwak.
brewery. Yeah, that stuff. So I'm doing a stout with that, and I have another one I'm working on with I mentioned the cask ale that I'm working on, and I also have an idea that I can do right now, which is also falls in line with the idea of this video. I want to do a $10,000 versus $100 homebrew setup. So literally a video that compares brewing the exact same recipe and beer on a very expensive 3-vessel electric system with all the stainless steel versus stuff that I buy on like Facebook Marketplace for like under $100.
I have that kit if you want to borrow it.
Yeah, I do need to get. I mean, because I even think the stuff that I dusted off for that video is definitely over $100. But just the burner alone was quite expensive. But
No, Matt.
yeah,
I think Steve's talking. He'll loan you out the $10,000 gear system that he's got.
Oh yeah, sure. I don't that I have, unfortunately.
So Matt, what's your goal then after you produce these videos? What's going to inspire you to keep going with them?
Honestly, the goal is the goal for me personally is to have an outlet that is 100% pure creativity. I do a lot of content creation in my day job, and I very often try to, be creative at that job, and that job just doesn't require the creativity. And so with Brew Cabin, specifically the YouTube channel, I just want to make stuff that I would like to see exist in the world. Videos that I would want to watch, on my phone, in bed, in the morning, whenever. Like, I just want to watch. I want more homebrewing content for me. So it's selfish, but at the same time, it's highly creative. So like, for example, and I expect no one to know this, but like every song in that video was original. I wrote all of those songs, recorded those songs, like all of the camera work, the color grading, like all of those things are like just creative bits and skills that I'm interested in, and making homebrew, and obviously homebrewing itself is creative, and just being able to express all of those creative parts of me into one 9-minute video is really the goal at the end of the day. Views are not a goal. Honestly, monetization is not a goal. It's really just being able to be as creative as I want to be.
All right. Well, I mean, by the way, I wanted to address one thing you had said. You had started this video with the idea of like, everybody's talking about homebrewing's down, the hobby's died, blah, blah, blah. Um, and I mean, the hobby is obviously retrenching and going back towards directions where it had been, but it's still not anywhere near the nadir it was when I first started homebrewing. But I did want to point out that I think one of the things that's great about this video and this sort of talk that you're putting together is we know very well that negative outlooks can lead to negative outcomes, right? The negativity can be very corrosive overall. If the continued dominant refrain of what everybody is talking about is homebrewing is dying, it's going away, this, that, the other, why bother? Like that starts to impact other people, right? People hear that, they start to get discouraged. So the idea of being out there and being loud and proud about, hey, homebrewing's not dying. Homebrewing's a lot of fun. Go do this thing. Remember why you do this. I think is incredibly important. I think that's also part of the reason why this video, again, to the community and education subcommittee when we were talking about it, yeah, it grabbed a lot of people's attention because people were like, "Oh shit, yeah, no, that's right. I feel this. I went through something like
Mm-hmm.
this, etc." So I love that aspect of it because it is, I think, very important because otherwise we do the we do run the risk of, again, self-fulfilling prophecy of saying homebrewing's dying and therefore nobody wants to do it anymore.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that once that trend, especially on YouTube, takes hold, you start to see a lot of people just copy it or jump on it, not in a bad way, not in a malicious way, but it gets views. And then, yeah, I certainly think that I'm absolutely susceptible to that. And I think I was susceptible to that, where I just saw a lot of, I felt just through the content that I was consuming, whether that be on podcasts or blogs or videos or whatever, that yeah, people just lost interest. People aren't drinking anymore. It's all done. I watched breweries around me close up. A lot of my favorite breweries just closed up, and so I go, I guess this is it. What's happening? But to me, I'm such a beer, like, such a fan that I've never been like, I don't do dry January because it's like you're taking away my favorite thing in the world. I'm like, no, thank you. I'd rather not. Um, for me, I was like, okay, maybe we're just in a course correction. Maybe the pandemic was just a crazy surplus of, how do we deal with this where everyone's home, let's get crazy. I'm also in the pool industry, and that very much happened. And now it feels like, oh, no one's swimming anymore. And it's like, no, they still are. It's just like they're out now. They're doing other things, and things will start to come back in the other direction. And what I wanted, especially with this video, is I wanted to add to the conversation of, I didn't want to call out the rhetoric. I want it to be a voice of positivity and sort of like, without piggybacking on anyone else's phrasing, but I want the thesis of me going forward and making these videos for myself more so than anyone else is to make home brewing fun. That's basically it. And it's always been fun, but truthfully, I personally, and this is why I use my story as sort of an amalgam to it, is I want it to be fun again. And I think that will be my hope, truly my hope, is that that's infectious. No pun intended.
No infections in your homebrew, please, but infectious attitudes. All right. We're getting here towards the end of the hour. Any last thoughts or questions from anybody?
Matt, you said you brew a lot by yourself, but what about your brother that helped you with the Keyser build? Did you ever brew with him?
Yeah, actually, all the time I brew with him. He's very unhelpful.
Well, good. Now we got that going. Keep the family steamroller going.
Yeah,
All right.
if no one knows that reference, I made a video with my quote unquote brother, who was just a video clone of myself.
Sorry, I was thinking it was more like car talk, you know, where
No.
don't brew like my brother.
It was just it was a very entertaining video in the sense that, and like you said, Matt, creating content. I appreciated that. It was a good watch for sure. I know I've watched it a few times.
Well,
Yeah, there's some comments under that video that people had no idea, which makes me very happy, but also like, really, you couldn't catch that?
So I would like actually, Matt, to have a little jumping off point for what you were talking about, that the videoing and the sharing, whether literally or sharing video of your brewing, you felt was very creative and it was a good part of it. How many other folks? I mean, Drew, I know you make some BrewTube content, and I make a little bit too. But anybody else, everybody's got a cell phone. And one of the best things we can do to show that the hobby is not dying is to do exactly what Matt did and start filming ourselves enjoying homebrew or homebrewing. Is anybody doing it? Anybody inspired to do it?
Well, I
Crickets.
think here's part of the problem, Doug, and I think a lot of people will find the idea of like, they see something like the video that Matt put together, which is very well constructed and edited tightly and tells the story and flows, and that seems intimidating as shit. So, I mean, like, I can edit a podcast. I have no problems with that, but editing video to me is like, ugh, it brings back bad memories of college. But I think to that point, one of the discussions that hopefully people will be interested in that we're talking about, that we're kicking around, is Doug wants to do some discussions about us actually doing some content creation, giving people lessons about how you can go out and make a basic YouTube video, how you can make a TikTok, a reel, a podcast, whatever your preferred format is. I always say I have a face for radio and a voice for writing. So somehow I ended up in podcasting. But amongst the folks who are here, I mean, is there any interest in that sort of thing? Like, would you guys want to see, hey, here's some basic content about, like, go and make your own videos for YouTube so you can spread the message, or Facebook or whatever. I'd love to know if people have any interest in that. Barlins, I've had thoughts about creating videos, but my brewery is not very photogenic. I'm much more comfortable behind the camera instead of in front, and there's ways to combat that. But yeah,
Well,
I mean,
the other thing is, Drew, I mean, we've got selfies. I mean, just sharing videos of us enjoying homebrew, selfies, everybody knows how to do a selfie. Everybody knows how to do a little social video. It doesn't have to be anything as beautiful and inspiring as what Matt has done. Few of us will ever be at that level. But to just share, hey, I just made this homebrew. Man, it sure was good. Share it on Instagram. I mean, we want to make a difference in this hobby. That's why we're all here. And sharing it on social media, whether it's as elaborate as what Matt does or as simple as a selfie, will go a long ways.
Well, I think Matt even said earlier, like, he was doing this not for the views and that sort of thing. So yeah, even something very simple, just to put the message out there, is helpful and handy. So,
well, I wanted to follow up. Just with your interest in or experience in podcasting, maybe there's somebody interested in doing podcasts with no video. Anybody out there interested in that?
I can say my true selfish goal of making these videos is so that more people make videos that I can watch.
There you go. Yeah. Although that is kind of like writing a book so other people will write more books.
And now it doesn't really one-to-one, but I don't know. I'm hoping that there's a little bit of inspiration. Like, oh, that was fun. I should do something like that. I have a yeah, and then I get to watch that, which because I'm yeah, I consume a ton of. I mean, I'll watch anything if you with a homebrew setup in it. I mean, if
Yep.
even if you took your phone out and you weren't even on camera and you just did it with zero editing and just filmed your setup vertically, I would watch the whole thing. It's pretty crazy what I'll watch. And my wife is like, "What are you watching on the biggest TV in our house?"
Yeah,
And it's like, yeah, it's just some guy in his garage with a with his iPhone.
I mean, we say that as though that's weird, but I mean, then again, you look at like some of the most popular content out there on the internet is things like I mean, Twitch is out there with people playing video games, and you just watching somebody else play a video game, which I don't get.
That's right.
Or the
I don't get
unboxing,
it either.
like
Right.
watching somebody unbox something. Like, wait, what? Why? So yeah,
Yeah,
there's
you want to
all.
watch me break down boxes? I can do that.
I like to watch people clearing drains and culverts.
Oh, post
Yeah.
15.
Yeah, post
Yeah,
10.
great.
Post 10, yes.
Oh, post 10, post 10.
It's a ridiculous thing to watch.
Absolutely, but it works like a charm. Or there's SB Mowing out there doing videos of cleaning lawns. Who knows
There's
why
a guy in my industry. There's a guy in my industry cleaning pools.
But I will say, Daniel mentioned the BrewTubers online homebrew club. They have a Discord channel, and we've been talking more and more about Discord here at the HA, and there's a lot. I'm actually surprised. I have a Discord running behind me. Steve's in the Discord. Saw him in there. But there's a Discord running on my computer here, and I've got like at least a dozen or more homebrew clubs or homebrew groups running in there and doing that, and that's also content creation. So there's lots of room. But again, I think one of the biggest things to take away from Matt's video here is just uh, the positive message of remembering why the hell it is that you like to be a home brewer, and also not forgetting to remind people that why you like that. I mean, actually tell people. Don't just hold it. It's like don't keep your light under a bushel, right? Ooh, I got vocal for a second.
Well, and I like that. And I think that's a good jumping off point. Is there any content or somebody that we'd like to get in the next happy hour? And Matt, you're welcome to join and throw out some names too.
Oh, fine. They're going to make us do all the work.
I guess so. Oh.
All right. Well, there you go.
I mean,
Matt, or what?
I would say Steve, the apartment brewer. Have him on.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I'm actually talking to Steve a little bit relative to HomebrewCon coming up. So Steve would be a good one. I know the guys at Clawhammer. They're willing to jump in. Anybody else? Well, James Simpson. I know you know him pretty well, don't you?
Oh, James
Matt?
Spencer, yeah.
Yeah, Spencer, excuse me.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you, if you guys have any ideas or suggestions, there's info@homebrewsassociation.org that you can always email, and we'll take the suggestions there. And yeah, Dougie just put it there, but yeah, HomebrewCon is coming up, it's coming back June of next summer in Asheville, North Carolina, which I know a few of you are close to. So that's going to be great. Another chance for us to share, more love of homebrewing and tell a good story about homebrewing as well. So, Douglas, should we wrap this up?
I think we shall, unless somebody's got to add anything. Matt, do you want to close? Anything you want to wrap up with?
No, I think we covered it.
Well, and things are all safe where you are. Again, Matt was planning to have full video with his wonderful studio that he has, but he has weather issues. So
yeah,
we want you to stay safe, Matt.
Stopped. So we mandatory shut during so to protect us from.
Yeah, I think Matt's experiencing the same thing that they're supposed to do here in Southern California when we get high winds and shut off parts of the power grid to avoid sparks.
Yeah.
Not that that worked terribly well about a mile away from me last year.
Yeah.
No, it did not.
And they literally pulled the plug on Matt minutes before we were about to start. So we would have given everybody a heads up had we known it. So my apologies there. Well, I think we'll wrap up with this, Drew, don't you think?
I think so. Boys and girls, don't forget, we will be coming back to you with another happy hour next month. The topic will be announced before too long. This video will end up on YouTube, so you can share it along with Matt's video with people that you know and love and want to tell the good story of homebrewing to. And in the meanwhile, I hope everybody has a happy holidays. I hope you have a nice homebrew to enjoy with it. If not a homebrew, maybe a home cider, a homemade, or at the very least, a beer.
Cheers.
Peace, love, and hops, y'all.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Great.
Thanks. Cheers.
All right.